Welcome into the premiere episode of our new mini podcast series called Think Fast. This is something that we are starting so as to better handle, I guess, the big things happening in the culture, the things that are happening rapid fire that we can't always get to a full episode of. Sometimes we record our episodes a week or two in advance, so by the time something big does come about, we don't always have the time to really devote to it, or it's already passed in the culture and that time is gone. So we want to be able to react quickly. And so the companion to Think Deeper is this Think Fast episode. And so, gentlemen, today we want to get into Disney and specifically, should Christians boycott Disney? Now, for those that are unaware, this is you may not know, but if you haven't, then the news. This has been all over the news, and it's this "Don't Say Gay" bill, as it has been coined by the left side for what's happening in Florida. And the main premise, I believe, it's actually Parental Rights in Education Act, and the idea is the legislature in Florida was voting to not allow discussion of gender and homosexuality and things like that in the classroom up to third grade. And they wanted to let that be the parents' right. Well, Disney initially had nothing to say about it, and they got in trouble for that. And so a lot of employees internally had, I guess, heated discussions and made a big stink about the fact that Disney did not come out and oppose this bill. And so Bob Chapek, the president, came out and said that he was very sorry, very apologetic that he did not stand up for it and that he was going to do a better job of standing up for those things and try to fight this now that it's passed. Fast forward a couple days later, and we start having these tweets come out of these internal meetings taking place in Disney. And just a couple tweets I'll read before we get right into it. This is from a guy on Twitter, for those that are on Twitter, Christopher F. Rufo. Rufo, Christopher Rufo, is really good on some of these things, and so check him out. And he's got a couple tweets. Disney production coordinator Alan March, who says his team is committed to exploring queer stories and promoting trans, bisexual, and gender nonconforming characters, says kids are getting all this information from the media, and there's a lot of power to that. And another scoop that he tweeted was Disney corporate president Carrie Burke says, as the mother of one transgender child and one pansexual child, she supports having many, many, many LGBTQIA characters in our stories and wants a minimum of 50% of characters to be LGBTQIA and racial minorities. This is not some low-level employee. This is the corporate president of Disney, Carrie Burke, saying these things. So, gentlemen, with this in mind, Disney seems to kind of be off the rails. This is a big sticking point. It's a hot topic in the culture right now. What are Christians supposed to do? I will give my brief take on this before I turn it over to you, and that is I'm kind of on the fence. I have gotten rid of my Disney Plus subscription, which includes Hulu and ESPN Plus. For those not listening, ESPN is owned by Disney, as is Hulu, ABC. Disney has its hands in everything.
Things, right?
A lot of things. And so I'm on the fence here. I have done it on the one hand. On the other hand, I have never really boycotted that much before. I don't fully believe in some of those things for different reasons. You two gentlemen are on either side of these. So I want to turn it over to you. Convince me, as the average guy who's sitting here saying, what should I do? Should I boycott? Should I not boycott? Will, I'm going to turn it over to you first.
Sure. And I'll hit kind of just the main aspect of this that I want to hit on, and that is the consistency side. I'm obviously not that old, 22 years old, but in the last few years, I've seen stuff like this before come up. If you recall, I don't remember the exact years, but this happened with Walmart. This happened with Home Depot. You still hear people say, you can't get your coffee at Starbucks. And, the idea behind these boycotts is, you're giving your money for a cup of coffee or for, tools or whatever at Home Depot, and they're sending it to these LGBTQ parades and the Trevor Project and all these things, et cetera. And so personally speaking, I've never gotten behind any of those other ones. I still drink Starbucks coffee, Home Depot, Walmart. I've never gotten behind it because, again, from my point of view, if you're going to choose to boycott one, you need to go ahead and sell your iPhone. You need to go ahead and stop using Google, all these things, sell your MacBook Pro, sell your Microsoft stuff. You're not going to have any cell phone really. And so the consistency side has always been the one that I harp on. We're very quick to say, well, okay, let's boycott this. Well, what about the other 10 to 12 things that we send our money to, because if you really dig deep enough, pretty much every company is sending their money places that obviously a Christian would not send their money to. So that's one side. I fully understand. I think Jack is going to get into this a little bit. I fully understand that this stuff with Disney is different. It is more extreme, I would say, than the Home Depot stuff, than the Target stuff, than the Starbucks stuff, even, because it's not just they're taking your money and sending it somewhere else. It's an agenda for them. Jack, I'll save that for you. But the consistency side for me, again, I'm not anti-boycott by any means. If you want to boycott Disney, don't think there's anything wrong with it. But I'm also not gonna, I have not canceled my Disney Plus subscription, and I'm not gonna tell anybody else that they certainly have to or that they should. I'm not quite as on the fence as Joe is. Still fairly on the fence though, because I understand, once again, this is an agenda. This is something that they are pushing. They're radically pushing. Jack, what do you have to add to that? Again, the consistency side has always been the one that I've gone to, but might be a little different with this.
I think the consistency thing is an important point, and as all of this is about, as Christians, learning to live in a world that is negative to Christians, that does not share our values. And so with that, these questions come up of what do we do? What do we do with people who don't share our values if we're going to take our money? And I mean, some of the New Testament things are about shopping in a marketplace where they're going to take your money and give it to idols, meat sacrificed to idols, things like that. And so consistency is a valuable question of, are you just kind of picking and choosing these things? On the other hand, I think the way I interpret it is there's levels to it. I've seen people say, you know what, I don't like what Jeff Bezos does with his money, therefore we shouldn't shop at Amazon. Like, do I need to vet every person, all the hundreds of thousands of probably at this point who work for Amazon, and vet how they're spending their money? That's just not realistic. Then there's the level of the corporation is doing it. They're taking this money that you spend and giving parts to this charity, parts to that charity, and what all charities are they giving it to? And I think on those levels, I don't boycott when those are the cases, even if I disagree with what they're doing with the money. I mean, if there's a thing, there's a pizza place, national pizza chain, that they will sell one particular item, and they say 50 cents of every sale of this thing goes to pride parades or whatever. Okay, I'm just not going to buy that thing because it's so direct, right? With the Disney thing, the product you're getting is the problem I have. The thing that you're giving them money for is the thing that is the problem. And Joe brought up some of those things, the internal leaks from Disney. I mean, just some really shocking stuff, and that they're really wanting to program into their kids' cartoons, their movies, the programming, indoctrination. They want to disciple your kids into the LGBT agenda. And so giving them the money to bring that into your home, I wouldn't pay for a subscription service that was teaching the Islamic faith. This is a faith into itself. And so I'm not going to pay for that faith to be brought into my home.
And for those that are unaware, Disney's already started this. There's going to be some that, this goes back to Lion King, even before maybe, but really they've ratcheted it up recently with the Turning Red movie. For those that are unaware, just a Pixar movie, and that's what's really disappointing. I love Pixar, but a Pixar movie that is just discussing some movie. Pretty, just some pretty serious stuff. I don't think the reproductive system needs to be coming into kids' films and twerking and things like that. That's 4, 7, 8, 9-year-olds. And obviously Lightyear will be coming out, another Pixar film based on Buzz Lightyear and kind of his origin story. And they've already said there's going to be an overt lesbian kiss, not in the background like there was with Star Wars, but overt lesbian kiss. They're going to start bringing this in more for your kids. And I guess my question is, like, where do you draw the line? At what point have they gone too far? Because it will get worse. If the internal leaks are true, which they are very true and they've been corroborated, if that stuff comes to fruition, at some point I do think we need to draw the line. The question is just where.
Well, and I think that's a question that I would ask as well. Where do you differentiate? Jack, you're right in the sense that the overall agenda behind Disney is one that is very scary and one that we certainly would not subscribe to. However, can you differentiate? Can you choose the movies? Can you watch the movies that don't have those things in there? Joe, you mentioned Pixar. How many dozens of Pixar movies are there that are fantastic for kids to watch? I know you guys like the movie Up, just a great movie. Toy Story, so many that are like that. And obviously those are older. And, I'm a big Star Wars guy. All the new Star Wars content coming out is going to make it really, really hard for somebody like me to cancel. So can you differentiate? Can you, say, I'm obviously not going to stream Turning Red. I'm not going to stream Lightyear, whatever. However, I'm going to enjoy the content. I'm going to enjoy the things that don't have that agenda pushed near as much.
Because we've been doing that with Pixar. They came out with a short story that's on Disney Plus called Out, which is about a gay man coming out to his family. That is Pixar. That's been out for a year plus, I think, on Disney Plus, and we've just chosen not to watch it. And so You're right to that point. The other thing that I struggle with is, and this is where it really starts to hit home for people, why boycotting is so difficult. I'm a huge Colorado Avalanche fan, major hockey fan. Most of the games are streamed on ESPN Plus. So when I pay for that bundle that comes with Hulu, Disney Plus, and ESPN Plus, the main thing, I don't even watch that much Disney Plus. The main thing I use it for is for Avs games.
Sure.
That's where we get to watch hockey. And so to your point, it's like, well, do I cut off Disney Plus? Do I just not watch the things that I'm not supposed to, or so as to save the hockey, or do I cut off all of it?
Well, because the other side, and Jack, I'll let you get back in here. The other side of it is, if it's just about money, where you're sending your money to them, you better stop watching Marvel movies. You better stop, going to the theater for the next Marvel movie. You better stop going to watch the next Star Wars movie. The ESPN, the Hulu, all those things. So it's very tough. And I know there's a lot of people out there that would say, fine, boycott all of it. No problem. But those are the questions that a lot of people are asking. Can you differentiate? Can you enjoy the stuff that doesn't push it? Jack,
and that is the consistency question, is
right.
Because to be consistent, if you're saying I'm not going to give a dime to Disney, you really need the chart of everything, and it is like you guys said, it's massive. I mean, avoiding giving a dime to Disney, and again, then you take the consistency of, I'm doing it for these values that Disney has, so I need to do that with Apple, I need to do that with Starbucks, I need to do that with Google, I need to, and
every major corporation, Johnson and Johnson.
Really, you're Amish now, right? I mean, like that's what it comes to, and maybe we should all be Amish, but
I can't grow a beard, so
so with that question, if these were all movies in the theaters and you say, I'm not going to go see that movie because it's there. The problem with Disney Plus is it's you're getting the whole package, number one, and number two, those quotes, the stuff that's come out of these internal meetings is, we're going to put this in every new show and movie. Every new show and movie is going to teach these things. It's going to be part of what we're pushing, is making sure that kids get these values from us. And so that to me is the consistency thing of this particular thing. Now, like if you give a money to a subsidiary of Disney for one specific thing, that is not the same as I'm paying for this service that is a discipling service teaching kids this agenda. And so for me, in my brain, it separates those two things. And so the question of boycotting really is, when you give your money to something, are you putting your values behind it? Or does that reflect your values? And I think a point I've made to a couple people is, if your favorite grocery store, if your local grocery store changed their name to Racial Slur Grocers, that next Sunday, there would be 10,000 sermon videos, think piece articles, a million things saying, Christians, you cannot shop at this store. Why? Well, because it would reflect your values. You would be endorsing that. You would be supporting this thing that has overtly come out and said, we are for this thing, and your money that's going to it is endorsing, is as part of what we're going to do to push out this brand. And rightfully so. I'm not criticizing that. I'm just saying that we would understand in that case that your money and your values.
You're saying.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And I think that's the problem with Disney, is the blatantness, is them coming out and saying, this is our platform for which we're going to teach kids these sexual ethics.
I feel like I'm getting on the train that I will inevitably have to get on at some point, because I only see this getting worse, and I think everybody will have to, and there may be a time where, or there may be, to your point, Will, maybe we never boycott them. I look at it and I say, if these things are going to come to fruition, it's going to get that bad, might as well get ahead of the curve. Now, yeah, I'm missing out on a lot of things. The Obi-Wan show's coming out. I am a big Star Wars fan, like you, Will. I mean, there's a lot of things I was excited for. I no longer have access to. I'm pretty bummed about that. But again, I feel like I'm kind of getting on the train ahead of when I would naturally have to get on it later. But it's a tough discussion. Let's wrap this up, as this is a kind of a rapid fire thing and a fast or a think fast. Fellas, can we bind this? This is the question, right? We always go to, and we were talking off air about the frustrating nature of always jumping to, can we bind it? Can we bind it? Can we bind it? Can we basically send people to hell over it? Look, I was talking to a guy today. We're not heaven's bouncers. We don't get to decide who's in and who's out. I love that phrase. It was a great phrase he used. We're not heaven's bouncers. We don't get to decide that. At the same time, is this something that we can bind? What would you both say to that?
That's such a tough call. Obviously, as somebody who has not yet boycotted, and again, down the road, I'm not saying I never will, because it is getting worse. Personally, I don't think you can, because once again, if you are going to say that, I'm going to hammer the consistency point again. Sell your iPhones, sell your Microsoft computer, go Amish, as Jack already said. If you're going to choose to bind something like this, then you're going to have to choose to bind every other company that is giving money to these things. And so, no, personally, I don't think you can. I think it's more of a conscience issue. I take more you might call it the libertarian approach. If you want to boycott, great. If you don't want to boycott, fine. Okay. Jack, what do you think?
I hate the question of binding. I hate it so much because it's so legalistic, isn't it? It's
Sure.
Do I have to? If I have to, I'll do it. If I don't have to, I'm not going to do it. Well, our walk with God does not consist of that. And so, I mean, if you're going to put the question point blank and I have to answer it, no, I'm not going to say you're sinning, you're kicked out of heaven, you're bouncing people out of heaven. If you're doing that, the question with these things is, what ought we to do? What would be pleasing to God? I mean, that's the question, that Paul brings up a few times in his letters, striving always to be pleasing to God, finding out what's pleasing to God. And what would God have me do with my family, especially small kids? They're watching, things on TV. What would he have me do? What ought I to do? And if there is an ought, if there is this is a better thing to do than the other thing, I think we should prescribe those things. And so binding, am I going to look down on it if anybody in my church, or if Will, keeps his Disney Plus subscription and say, you're sinning, I'm done with you, we're not in fellowship anymore? No. On the other hand, I will sit over here and say, I think it's a good thing to do. And I want to quickly add one thing. I think a lot of people get boycotts wrong. It's kind of the idea, we're going to bring Disney to their knees. We're going to make their stock crash. We're going to really show them. No, you're not. You're not. We don't have the numbers for that. The culture isn't that. That's not what I'm trying to do with all this. My point is, I don't want those values in my home. And so that's why it's very specific to this thing that they're trying to bring in, very specific ideology that I just don't want in my house. And so I think that is something that I would not teach, you have to do this. I would teach, think about the things that are being brought into your house. Again, if it was Muslim indoctrination, if it was Mormon indoctrination, you wouldn't sit your kids down in front of that. Think about this as well. And so that's my angle on it, is no, I'm not binding, but it is something to think about and, pray about, think about what are we trying to accomplish here? And I think the case for me is that this would be what you would do. But if you disagree, there is liberty and freedom on these things for sure.
I think that's a great sum up. The last thing I would add, I guess, and I probably shouldn't because that's such a good way to sum it up, but if you are on, and we see this on Facebook, look, if you decide to boycott, again, I think it's, it's prudent. I think there's reasons to do it. If you see somebody that doesn't, I see this a lot of like, well, it's just easy for us to go to Disney. It's not all that easy for everybody else. You get some older people. Well, I don't see why that's the problem. You haven't watched a Disney film since Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs came out. Like, this doesn't, it's a lot easier for you to boycott something that, I got a 3-year-old at home who happens to love Lightning McQueen, as he calls him. Now I gotta tell him, hey man, we're not watching that anymore. There are actual consequences to us boycotting. So for those that go, well, easy decision, why wouldn't you just do it? It's difficult in some ways. That's not saying I won't do it. I've already done it. But yes, now I have to explain why on family movie night, we watch a movie every Friday, why nothing that's on Disney, which is quite a bit of kids content if you're familiar, none of that we can watch anymore. We're not going to watch anymore. Yeah, there's some real world consequences. It's something we got to be willing to do and stand up for. And Jack, your point is brilliant. It's not to bring Disney to the knees as much as it is a conscience of, hey, I don't want to bring this into my home. So that's just to those out there that are willing to, browbeat those who aren't, like Will, who aren't getting rid of it. Please don't. You can have a solid discussion. That's really what we're trying to do here, is to have a solid discussion on this and to bring our points. We're all for that. That's fantastic. Browbeating somebody into your point of view because you think they're stupid or it's super easy to just give it up. I would just encourage people, please don't do it. Let's keep it civil. Let's try to just encourage one another, spur one another on to love and good deeds. With that, gentlemen, anything else to add before we wrap this up? All right, guys, this has been, again, the premiere episode of Think Fast. Almost got it wrong there. Still working on that, but of Think Fast. And we're hoping to bring a lot more to you in the future about some things that we feel passionate about that we won't quite get a full episode out of. But we'd love to know your thoughts. Please let us know if you are boycotting, if you're not boycotting, if you got a take on here that maybe we didn't have. Please let us know. This is going to be streamed on Facebook and on YouTube. And if you can comment and let us know where you stand on that, that would be fantastic. And just let us know if we're right on this stuff or wrong. That's okay. Either one. Thanks, guys. With that, we'll wrap it up.